What are the benefits of an online mixing and mastering studio? Now, I'll tell you, first of all, before I start answering this question, I'll tell you a quick story. And basically, I used to work with a company, and used to do the mixing, the mastering for them. And this was going back probably 15, 14 years maybe. So I used to work with them, and they were just an attended studio. They had no online presence, zero online presence. And prior to starting Audio Animals, I kind of looked at their business and I kind of went, we should be going online. There's a whole new market for you guys. Less and less people were walking through the door. And I kind of said, it should be going online. And it's like, these guys were, they're old. They were kind of, they weren't forward thinking in the sense that they weren't adapting with the times. Analog consoles, everything was analog. Brilliant, lovely, great sound, whatever. But they weren't embracing the digital age. And I left there and started my own company because I wanted to embrace this digital age and I wanted to take a business and especially a studio online, and I wanted to explore that. They weren't interested in that, so that's why I kind of went and done this. Thankfully, started Audio Animals. They're now not in business anymore because, well, they figured that people would still walk through the door, and less people did. Bands were recording at home. They had the ability to record. You didn't need a big recording studio necessarily to record bands, especially bands that were on a budget and independent. So less and less people were walking through the door. Subsequently, they shut down in the end. But what it allowed for us to do was take a business online. So to answer the question of what are the benefits of taking a business online. Now, let's use this analogy of this studio that we used to be at and versus this studio, well, the Audio Animals studio complex. Now, the big major difference is us as a business, we can offer our services to everyone across the globe. We literally can offer it, and we work with people from Japan, China, Australia, Pakistan, India, everywhere, all over Europe, America, South America, literally the whole of the world. There's probably not a continent or a territory that we have not worked with a client from, because we literally have an online presence which connects to everybody. Now, the studio that we used to work with, they could only work with people who were willing to drive or come visit the studio, or they were local and they were in East London and they could just go straight to this studio. The fact is that my business is kind of worldwide. So I don't know how many people are in the world. Alexa, how many people are in the world at the moment?
According to the US Census Bureau, the world population yesterday was approximately 7.94 billion.
Okay, so I can advertise to 7.94 billion people. Alexa, what's the population of East London?
From jetradar.com. The population of East London is approximately 478,000 people.
Right, so 478,000 people in just East London, in comparison to, 9.4 billion people. That's a tiny little blip in comparison to what we can market to. So that's your big differences there, is the fact that what we can do is, having an online business, we can reach everybody. Having a business where you have to have everybody walk through the door, you can only reach people local or people that are willing to drive and visit. So there's a huge difference, and that's what a massive factor comes down to. Advertising, for instance. I can advertise my business on Facebook, Instagram, Google Ads, all these different platforms. I can pull in business from all over the world via adverts, for instance. An attended session, an attended studio, for instance, they put local paper, advertise on Facebook and places like that, but scale it to a key demographic in the area. My advertisements, I can pinpoint accurately advertise to the key demographic, whereas they kind of stick an ad in a newspaper, or stick an ad in on a bus or whatever. It's not detailed, it's not targeted. It probably costs more. So there's massive advantages there to having this online business. And ultimately, with an online business, let's think, for instance, we've got a master. Now, if this mastering studio that has just attended sessions versus our mastering studio which has online services. Now, the time it takes to go to the attended session, the client travels there, they're often late, 15, 20 minutes added onto the time because they're late. Then when the client's there, you're talking about certain things, it's a whole experience for the client. They walk in, they have a little look around the studios, do all that sort of stuff. By the end of play, you're talking 2 hours for one master, maybe sometimes 3. It takes a lot longer to do all of that, and I know that because I've had people come in here and we've done masters, and it takes a lot longer, so it gets priced up, so the client has to pay that little bit more for all that. All these things, like they're coming into the studio, you got to have the insurance for all of that. There's all sorts of different things that have to be factored in to when someone attends a studio, so the price goes up, astronomically up actually, in comparison to us with our studio and online business, where the client just literally goes on laptop, bosh, sends the file off, received by us, we check it over. If everything's good, we go ahead and master. If everything's not, quick email back and explain what the issues are, send a new file, perfect, right, let's get on with it. 9 times out of 10, or 99% of the time, the file's fine, and we go through, just start working. So file comes in, file's sent to us, the payment's made, file comes to us, we do the mastering about an hour, file goes back to them, they're happy, right? 9 times out of 10, might want one revision, another 15 minutes, set the chain up, bosh, revision made, send it back. The whole process on average for a master, for instance, you're talking an hour. Some tracks may be a little bit longer, some tracks less, because of how much work's involved in them and how bad the mix is. If you've got a great sounding mix, it's a lot easier to master, obviously. But now factor in, we've got a master that's £40-50, for instance, that can be done in an hour. Bang. This master, with the attended session, 2 hours, 3 hours. So £50. Well, we've got to charge £150. If we're looking at that as an hourly rate, for instance, £150. So now we've got to charge £150 a master, because it takes 3 times as long. So this is one thing you've got to massively factor in. Then you've got to factor in, oh right, okay, because we're attended studio, we've got to have someone on a desk at the front of the front door, right? Okay, so we've got additional things to outlay for, where it's a business premises with a reception. We've got to have all that. Then we've got to have free coffees and whatnot. You can really factor in so much that goes into having an attended session, whereas we can go really kind of, we can make it massively affordable for people, because we take out all the unnecessary stuff and we give the client exactly what they need, which is their track mastered to the best possible outcome. The other thing as well is, when you've got a client there looking over your shoulder, looking at what you're doing and stuff like that, you can't do your best work. And it's, that is fact, and you can't do your best work. Your best work is done when you are left alone, especially from a kind of mixing engineer, mastering engineer's perspective. Your best work is always done when you are left alone and you can just sit and work on the track. You work on the job in hand, you get it done, you move on to the next one. The other thing with that is that when you consider an attended session, for instance, say someone's coming in, you're working to their kind of schedule as much as yours. So they're coming in and it's like, right, well, we've got to do that track today because that person's booked in for today. Right, okay, so that's what's got to be done. Whereas for me, I can walk into the studio and I go, I don't feel like doing that really hardcore rock album today. That we'll do that tomorrow. I feel like something more chilled today. And you might do something else, and you can move some things around. And what that does is you aren't dictated by someone else what you work on. You're choosing what you're working on at certain points of the day, which is brilliant. And that is a real big factor in this, because sometimes you can look at a track and go, I don't fancy mastering that today, or I don't fancy mastering that right now. It's first thing in the morning. I want to master something more chilled. I don't want to master a really dark drum and bass track right now. Let's do that about 3 o'clock when we've kind of livened up a little bit. That all does play a factor, and you can't do that if you've got attended and someone's coming in. They're dictating when you do that track, whereas online service, you've got none of that. You can decide when you want to do each bit of work. So for instance, you might sit there and say, I want to leave by about 3 o'clock tomorrow. I want to get off a little bit early. Like tomorrow, I've got a thing with my daughter's got to play at school. I've got to get off by I think 2:30, so I've got to get to that. What I'll do today is I'll get the jobs that I have to get done from 2:30 onwards. They get done today. That's what I can do as a mastering engineer with an online service. Whereas the attended service, I have to either say to someone, I can't do those hours because I've got to do this. I can move things around, and as long as the job's done by the deadline, or the job's done within the 5 working days, perfect. That's what the major benefits are, and there are huge benefits. Really, there are huge benefits to having an online service compared to a kind of attended service. So yeah, if you're going to start a studio in 2023 or 2022, if you're going to start studio, go start something online. All you've got to have is a great website. Have a great website, great SEO, great marketing. Get all that together. You get the kind of infrastructure of your website together, and you'll make a success of it. As long as you've got to have a good service, good studio, get a good sound and all that. That ultimately plays the biggest part in it. But having that website, you'll massively benefit from having a website over an attended studio space.